On tonight's program, ladies and gentlemen, we have something that's going to make you sick.
Hello, my beautiful alien. Yes, that is what I call listeners of the Authentically Blue podcast. If you're new here, I am your host, Carlson, and you have caught a rerun episode. It could either be an interview that I did, or it could be a solo episode. For the solo episodes, I tend to have authentic rambles where I just ramble on what's in my mind with no script whatsoever. Or it could be a structured episode, either entertainment, my favorite TV shows, books, products, or it could be structured episodes in terms of a topic like boundaries. Anywho, I hope you enjoy this rerun episode and you can catch me on socials or Patreon for more content. See you soon for season 4. Bye guys. Hello, my beautiful humans, and welcome back, or welcome if you're new here to the Authentically Blue podcast. I am your host, Carlson, and the time is 7:39 p.m. I am in my childhood home, the living room specifically, where recording this episode. And in today's episode, I'm going to be talking all about growing up. I have wanted to create this episode even before I created this podcast, which is insane. It's just something that has been on my mind for quite some time, and my thoughts have fluctuated a lot. We will dive into all of that in a minute. In this episode, I will be discussing my thoughts on growing up. I will also be discussing. I will also be commenting on a thread on Reddit about growing up. And lastly, I will be answering questions. I asked a bunch of questions on Instagram about growing up, both my personal Instagram account and my podcast Instagram account, which is linked down below, by the way. And also, a few weeks ago, I asked people on Instagram to ask me questions for the pod, and I never got around to answering those ones. So here we are today, doing all of that. Thank you so much for clicking onto this episode. In the beginning, I mentioned something along the lines of my thoughts on growing up has changed a lot, let alone in the past few years, because I wanted to create this podcast in 2019, 2018. But in the past week, when I sat down to decide, okay, the next episode I'm releasing is growing up, let me gather my thoughts were everywhere. And I think I've come to a place where I am at peace with what I'm going to share and talk about for now. And if anything changes, of course, I will do an updated episode or update you guys. But for now, these are my thoughts. The initial brainstorm I had for this episode was the idea of being grown up, the illusion of time, feeling like a kid when you're grown up, and like still feeling young. And also things that happen naturally to us while we grow up that low-key freaks people out. Those are my initial idea or like points as to where I wanted to go play with while recording this episode. However, I will now dive into my actual thoughts. I have gone from having such negative thoughts to even dreading growing up, quite frankly. To preface this has been due to a lot of grief, moving around, having different homes, heartbreak, loss of friendship, and constant change. And I know all of these things happen to so many people in this universe. I'm not alone in this experience. But of course, sometimes when you go through these emotions, especially if they're negative or vulnerable, we don't tend to share them with people. Okay, not me. I am someone who shares these things very openly with people, but it's not our culture or the nature of the world to do that. And you can tend to feel pretty lonely when you're going through these things. Believe you me, I have had moments and thoughts while I was experiencing things that I felt super duper lonely, but I don't want people to feel that way. So I'm creating this episode to share these thoughts with you. Okay. A disclaimer or a trigger warning, should I say, before I dive in, is this episode may be heavy and leave you feeling blue. But I will do my absolute best to keep it uplifting, as I possibly can. And There's an episode I recorded about change, and it's called Fast Times. I will link it down below if you leave this episode feeling, what the hell? Everything in life changes, or you just feel slightly overwhelmed. Feel free to check that episode out. And it's a great guide if you like to deal with change. So I hope you enjoy it. Now on to my thoughts. Let me begin by saying so much in life happens differently for everyone, but I strongly believe we all experience the same emotions on different degrees, of course, and the effects of these emotions vary and have so many factors that are linked to it. For instance, our experiences growing up, our environment, how we were raised, where we are in the world, what we are exposed to. All these elements have a factor on how we handle and deal and express and feel emotions. But we all grow up. At the end of the day, there's no denying that. So, a thought I've had about growing up quite often is just the changes in general. We change so much. And so many aspects of our life change. Our home life, our family members, our work and career or education, the people in our life, our friends, our significant others, our family members. And sometimes these changes happen drastically. Sometimes they happen really slowly. And sometimes you may not even feel them. And you just look around in a year or two and realize things are very different as to how they were. Because we all have different experiences, and it just varies. And in these changes, in the different aspects of our life, there's turbulence that occurs. That's undeniable. There's difficult moments we have, and there's constant change. Things never ever really do stay the same. The situation may stay the same, but people change. Or people don't really stay the same, so I can't say people stay the same, but these things are constantly changing. And that's something I've thought about quite a bit. It's a natural part of life. I think when you're having a bunch of these things happen at the same time, it can be really overwhelming. Or even if you're having one thing happen, it can be overwhelming, something that means a lot to you. And, it's all part of growing up. One important part about everything changing for me is how much I change as a human being and how much you change as a human being. Yes, you who's listening. What's important to you? What do you value? And how do you grow, change, and evolve as a human being? Because that's just how life is. And we are with us forever. Everything in life changes and leaves and, is constantly evolving. However, we are stuck with us forever, for good or for bad, for better or for worse. And that's an important part of change that I find. Another thought I had about growing up is being in different cities, and I noticed on Reddit a lot of people actually touched on this too. For me personally, it's being in different cities because I have family members in different cities and I have homes in different cities. But the main idea, I suppose, is where you call home. So even if you don't move to another city and you've lived in one place for a very long time, it can be that you stay in the same area where you are till adulthood, and let's say you get married and move out, your home changes, or you leave for education, your home changes. There's change, that change in your home life is vital. That change in home life is universal. Everybody experiences at one point or another. And it's just a part of growing up. And I think for me personally, with growing up, something that's I found interesting is my relationship with the people in my life. So the people who raised me, my family members, my relatives, and my loved ones. I think how I view them does change a lot, and also how my relationship with them changes as I become my own human being, an adult, should I say. Another aspect of this is the idea that your time with these people in your life, the people who've raised you or the people who you care about and love, is limited. Because when you're an adult, you have a lot of responsibilities. Adulting is juggling different aspects of your life, finding the balance between you time and work and or education and family and friends and fun time. And there's just a lot to juggle, and there's not enough time. There's just not enough time. So I think that aspect of realizing you don't have enough time with people you love because of time, or if these people or yourself are in a situation where you have a health condition, or I don't want to be negative, but if your life is unpredictable and anything can happen, negative things happen and positive things happen. So I'm going to just leave it at that, not to make it too daunting, but realizing the little time you have with your loved ones. And it can be even more negative if you don't have good relationships with these people. And don't get me wrong, I am not saying that if someone in your life, especially a family member, someone has wronged you, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, like all these different elements, you have every right to stay away. And don't force things, don't force yourself, don't feel guilty. Honor how you're feeling and move that way. No one has any right over you or how you're feeling and being in control and forcing you to do certain things. But at the same time, if you are in a situation where your relationship with these people who've raised you or who are important to you is not the best and it's fixable because nothing drastic happened, you need to get on top of it, because we never know how much time we have on this world. So noticing and valuing people and realizing they're just human beings at the end of the day, and seeing them for who they are, that's another interesting element. I was just going to say lastly on this point is there's a book by Janet McCurdy called, there's a book and it's called I'm Glad My Mom Died. It's by Janet McCurdy. If the name sounds familiar, Janet McCurdy used to act in iCarly and she was Sam. I haven't read this book yet, however, it is on my to-do list. I find it fascinating. I've seen interviews of her talking about the book and expressing how she feels, and it's amazing. It's not amazing that she's glad her mom died. It's amazing how we got to see different experiences people face in the world, because she talked about how so many people reached out to her saying how they felt extremely guilty for having similar thoughts. But I'll leave it up to you. Go listen, go do your research and check the book out and read it if you're interested in it. But yeah. Okay. To uplift you from these daunting thoughts I've just offloaded on you, I think there's a comfort in knowing the time you have with people, whether it's family members, friends, loved ones, the people you value in your life, because you realize you have time and it's a blessing. It's not too late to invest and make a change and do something different, because we can't change the past. It's done. It's over. Another uplifting thought is the little time you have left with these people, make the most of it, value it. And believe me, it's sweet and really great because of how you're in the moment and you're not regretting and looking forward to, you're just there valuing. So that's a thought about growing up I had. Another thought about growing up I had is thinking of the future and how everything changes and we don't know where we will end up. Oh, this thought has haunted me, especially during periods of times where I was dealing with growing up and change quite a bit. So I would say an uplifting thought about this is there is a comfort in the unpredictability, because I wouldn't want to know where I do end up. Life would be boring if I knew in 10 years I was going to get married, or in 10 years, in 15 years I was going to be the prime minister, or in 7 years I would move to New York. I don't know. These are just random examples I've given, but life would be boring. I think there's a fun element to the unpredictability, but the uncertainty is what can be daunting and can lead to anxiety, feeling overwhelmed, or even depressed. I'm not going to lie. So some of these thoughts can become daunting. And with that, I would say something that a thought that comforts me a lot is every single human being goes through this. Everyone has uncertainty. Everybody has doubts. Everybody has fears. Nobody has anything really figured out. That's just the way the world is. That's just how life is. And we keep it moving. So no one has the upper hand. I hope that gives you comfort just as it did me. Plus, on top of no one has the upper hand, you are in control of your actions and your thoughts. So while you're working on you and figuring out what you want, that's how you counteract how the world is. That's how you deal with the uncertainty and the unpredictability. You can't control the actions towards you. You can't control the experiences you're in. You can't control how things affect your life. You can control how you react to these things. You can control how your mind, how your thoughts are in your mind. You can control your reactions, your actions. You can either, if you're gaining weight, you can, whatever situation you're in, you can rephrase your mind. And I think whichever situation you are in this world, focusing on your thoughts is one of the most powerful things ever. And the moments where I felt really blue and sad and low are moments where I let my thoughts run free and run wild with no discipline. So focus on your thoughts. That's a huge and massive one. My last thought that I'm going to share about growing up is feeling like life is moving way too fast. And my uplifting solution for this is all we can do is savor the moment we're in and appreciate the good times. And that is it for my thoughts. Now I'm going to dive into a few scenes in This Is Us that I really enjoyed. This Is Us is a show about the Pearson family. It's a family of 5 triplets and 2 parents. And the show portrays their life at different stages. The parents' lives, the kids when they were babies, when they were preteens, when they were teens, on the verge of adulthood, and when they are adults, like in their late 30s. And we get to see their life at different stages. Anyway, there's something about this show that captures emotions perfectly. It's hands down my favorite show in the entire world. And funnily enough, the last episode of the show, it's ended completely and I am devastated. However, the last episode of the show was so beautiful and had so many scenes that comforted me with growing up and changing this world. So I am going to discuss 3 scenes. Scene number 1 was a reminder from one actor to another. And the reminder was to appreciate moments when they're happening and not when they're about to end. I personally spent so much time worrying about different aspects of growing up that I need to slow down and hit the brakes, look around and appreciate and take it in more, because nothing will ever be the same as it is now. I'm 100% sure I'm going to look back 2 years from now and be like, oh my God, I loved spending time in Kericho with my uncle and watching Breaking Bad with him, with hot chocolates every night till 4 a.m. in the morning. And I'm going to look back 4 years from now. I'm always going to look back and appreciate the now. So being in the now and fully appreciating it and taking your time. And yes, knowing it's going to end, but knowing that there's so many more beautiful experiences to come. And they're not guaranteed to be beautiful, but with a positive mindset, they maybe will be. The second scene I'm going to be discussing is a speech one character gave to another. And this character said, when we are older, we are constantly trying to go back and be back to when we were young, trying to appreciate the moment. I mean, that's all we are doing, collecting these moments. We don't recognize them because while we are in them, we're busy looking forward, and we spend our whole lives looking back, trying to remember and be back into these moments. And it's such a strange thing about life, the things you remember. I don't even have anything to add to this, so I'm going to go to scene number 3. In scene number 3, this specific scene emotionally wrecked me. I was not okay for a couple of hours. I was bawling my eyes out, crying and being happy and emotional. But this is season 6, episode 17. And one character said, "This is quite sad, the end." And another character responds, "Oh, I don't know. The way I see it, if something makes you sad when it ends, it must have been pretty wonderful when it was happening. Truth be told, I've always felt a bit lazy to just think of the world as sad, because so much of it is. Because everything ends, everything dies. But if you step back and look at the whole picture, if you're brave enough to gift yourself the gift of a really wide perspective, if you do that, you'll see that the end is not sad. It's just the start of the next incredibly beautiful thing." And I know I just blubbered words, but these words mean a lot to me. I hope, if you haven't watched This Is Us, I hope what I said resonates with you and makes you feel better, because yes, these words mean a lot to me, but at the same time, watching the show, the characters and the storyline has a huge effect on how the words have dawned on me. So that was interesting. And that concludes my thoughts on growing up. So I'm going to dive into the Instagram questions right now. I'm going to firstly talk about 2 questions people asked me a few weeks ago, which I completely forgot to answer. But question 1 is, when was the last time you did something new? I would say bowling and driving a manual car. I'd never gone bowling before. Not bowling. I've been bowling. What's the word of the name? What's the word of this game? Pool. Yes. The one with the table. I hadn't played pool before, and I played it with my uncle, aunt, and my favorite human being, my brother. And it was so fun and amazing. My brother and uncle are very competitive because they play this game, that they play pool and other games on their phone constantly. So it was lovely doing it in real life with them while they're teaching me and my aunt how to play. And driving manual is the most recent thing I've done that's new. I know how to drive an automatic car, but I know how to drive manual too. And I guess the most recent one is watching Breaking Bad, because so many people have been telling me to watch it, and it's a new show that I did. So, yes. Next question was, what wouldn't you share on the podcast? I would have to say, for this question, I would never really share my personal life in depth. I would only share snippets about my life, and it really depends on the topic. So, for instance, I'm talking about growing up, and I'm comfortable sharing I had an existential crisis, and I was dealing with heartbreak and loss and friendship breakups, because we all go through that as a collective. But I would never go into the nitty-gritty and say the breakup was because of this, or my friendship ended because of this. I would just generalize it and make it resonate with you, if that makes sense. And because I find there's a fine line with the internet and sharing. So I wouldn't share my relationships or my life in depth. There's a fine line and boundary that I have created to protect my peace and sanity, honestly. That concludes the questions. Let me just take that off. Next, I have growing up questions I asked on Instagram. So these are the questions I asked on my Instagram to do with growing up. What is something you wish you knew growing up? What would you tell your younger self about growing up? What is the saddest or most exciting part about growing up? And lastly, any other thoughts? Let me know. A friend responded, growing up is overrated, and I 100% agree with you. For question 1 about what they wish they knew about growing up is how to do their taxes, and what they wish they could tell their younger self is to slow down. And for question 3, what is the saddest or most exciting part of growing up? My friend responded, the people you meet and love is so exciting, but the people you outgrow is sad but necessary. And I agree with you. I was about to say your name, but I completely agree with you. Another friend responded, the most exciting part about growing up is deepening how you are achieving your goals and dreams with every step. The saddest part about growing up is life becomes a harsh reality that you have to cope with. That one is heavy, and I feel you on this one, especially the first few years of adulthood when things are constantly changing. Not that they don't change when you're older, but you know what I mean. Just grasping and getting it. For question 2, which was what would they tell their younger self? My friend responded, I would define you as a person and don't beat yourself up too much, which is interesting and a cool thing to note. And the same friend said that they would tell their younger selves, growing up is a roller coaster. You'll cry, you'll be happy, you'll fail, you'll succeed, and that doesn't define you as a person, so don't beat yourself up too much. This friend said for what they wish they knew about growing up is that they wish they knew that not everyone who you interact with is your friend. Preach, sister, preach. I'm going to do an episode on friendship, so I'll touch on this more. But I'm going to answer the next few questions. Someone said, build meaningful relationships, genuine ones. Social media has stolen this from us. And I agree. Exciting thing about growing up, this person said, I don't know if it's exciting. I was never shy. I was loud. Regardless of it all, I was loud. And I know this person, so that's interesting, seeing the perspective or self-awareness, which is cool. For the saddest part about growing up, my friend responded, I lived within me. I swallowed pain, interests, anger, everything. This is sad. And I think it's an interesting perspective because I'm sure there's so many other people who do this. Number 2, this friend responded, what would they tell their younger self about growing up? I would tell my younger self to move on. Clinging on people as your hope or even mistakes staggers your progress. Wow. I kind of needed to hear this. Not that I'm going through anything right now, but it just... You know, when you hear something that makes you feel content with how your life has been so far, that's what this just did. Shout out to you for telling me this. And what is something they wish you knew growing up? My friend said living by certain values will get you through the hardest times of your life and get you far. I 100% agree with this. There's certain values I have with me that have helped me navigate really tricky situations. Okay, and a friend of mine said, what is something they wish they knew growing up? And he said financial literacy. This reminds me of the friend who said taxes. Okay, this friend also said, what would you tell your younger self about growing up? Stand firm on your decisions. That's also a really good one because growing up, we may feel uncertain about different emotions and not sure how to do or move, but if you're content with your decision and you've looked at the different elements of your life, stand firm by it and believe in yourself. It makes the hugest difference. Okay, now that I've answered the questions, the final part is the Reddit comments. I'm going to read the comment and then give my thoughts on it. I am going to link the thread down below, by the way, if you want to go read all the other responses. All right. The question was, what is the saddest part about growing up? And someone said, the death of so many possible futures. When you were a kid, the future was a limitless expanse of possibilities. But then every year goes by and your range of possibility narrows. Some futures were hopeless to begin with. They die when you learn about yourself and the world. And maybe you get to middle school and realize that you can't be a ballet dancer. You're too short and nothing will change that. Other futures die when you make decisions that irrevocably close them off forever. Maybe you get caught shoplifting or smoking weed in high school and you end up in juvenile court. You're never going to be a politician now. Most futures die because you can only pick so many futures to keep up with. So many futures to keep open. You ask this girl out instead of that one. You pick one school to attend instead of another one. And you major in one subject. Then things become less and less a matter of active choice. They become increasingly a matter of letting yourself gently settle into a path of least resistance, of comfortable determinism. So many futures die because you passively neglect them. You settle into a particular city, you keep a particular job, maybe you get comfortable with a particular significant other. Now you have one future, and it's merely the final series of events in a sequence you never even realized you were choosing. That's the saddest thing about growing up. Not the death of so many possible futures, but the final realization that you killed them. Reddit was kind of going mad with this one. I kid you not, I had to take a few days to digest after I read this post because it was kind of making me depressed. But when I read this one, I ran to my uncle and I was like, "Uncle, listen to this." And he was like, "Aisha, I don't want to feel depressed right now. I don't want to feel sad and it's kind of getting to me. And you have to be careful with the episode." But I agree with this one. I think I'm someone who my life has been so spontaneous that I moved to Kenya when I was 7. I live with different family members. Life has been so exciting, and I look back and think, okay, if I lived with my dad's side of the family, this would happen. And it's like a domino effect of things that would have never happened. And I'm so glad and grateful for how things have happened. I genuinely wouldn't change a thing. I know it sounds so cliche, but I really wouldn't. Yes, there are things right now looking back, I'm like, I don't regret per se. I just wish some experiences went different, but I wouldn't go back and change it either way. But my point is, when I became an adult and I made the decision to move to Manchester or move to wherever and major in this degree and do this and this and this, I was taking my life into my hands, and I am the one who's killing my possible futures. So that was an interesting thought. Someone else said, "Time seems to go faster." And then someone responded saying, "I've heard 2 theories as to why this occurs. Firstly, you make more memories on the years with huge impacts, and thus those years feel longer. Getting a new printer at work ain't exactly as exciting as, say, learning to ride a bike or having sex for the first time. Fewer new things occur the older you are, so those years seem to breeze by. Secondly, as you get older, experiences take up less of your total life, so you don't remember them. For instance, your 5th year of living is 20% of your life, your 8th year is 14%, and so on. These are big chunks of your life. You tend to remember those years, but as you get older, your 40th year, for instance, only makes up 2.5% of your life. 2.5% seems to go by so fast." Okay, now this response literally shook me because I have been feeling like this a lot lately. The comment reads, "Watching kids play as you drive to work." It wasn't necessarily driving for me, but when I see kids playing, like my younger brothers playing in the estate, or even here in my estate that I grew up in as a kid for how many years, I saw a kid coming from the primary school I went to, going all the way down home. I looked at this kid thinking, oh my goodness, this was me a while ago, and it's insane to me. Yesterday it was raining heavily, and I love the smell of the rain, especially when it hits the mud here. The air is unmatched, okay? The air is unmatched. The smell of the air, the feel of the air, everything was just amazing. But I saw a kid running around the estate because it was raining, and she was like, oh my God, she was like so excited and goofy and just running home because it was raining coming back from school. And I remember that being me. I felt the feeling she was feeling, but at the same time I was like, oh my goodness, I'm grown. But that's an interesting one, definitely. And then someone responded to watching kids play as you drive to work. Oh my God, this. It's very bittersweet to enjoy the next generation having fun while simultaneously you're wondering how you are so far from that unrestrained happiness. Where did the years go? Where did I go from waking up and running outside to play to waking up and stressing on about everything around me? It's not even like the world is different, and I think that's the sad part. Who is really being deceived here? Okay? someone else commented the loss of feeling at home. And then someone said, I moved out at 17, and all through college when people said they were going home for vacation and holidays, I would just sit there and think, oh, nice. I touched on this briefly earlier. However, someone commented, the moment you look at your parents and you don't see authority anymore, you just see people that are going through life one day at the time, the same as you. When you realize that they don't have all the answers, and you realize the thing you hated them for when you were younger are completely understandable, and you want to do something to make up for all the shit, and you just can't, because you and your parents are equal adults and neither of you can really help each other anymore. The first time my mom phoned me crying because her husband had left her and she didn't know how to cope or what to do or what to say to my little sister, and I just didn't know. I was completely useless. It was the first time I ever saw my mom show any sign of weakness. I had been brought up seeing my mom as someone who had her shit together and could deal with anything. But nope, she'd had my back my entire life. And the one time she needed me, I didn't have a clue as to how to help her. Ugh, them fields. Okay, I have a few thoughts on this one. I would say I get it when you don't know how to react per se, when someone who has raised you and who means so much to you is vulnerable in front of you. I've had one situation where I was young. I was like 17 or something, I guess. Still old enough, but it's not even 17. When I was, I think 16, 17, when my granddad was ill, and I think my grandmother was just grasping with it all, and my granddad went into the bathroom to change his shirt, and my grandmother sent me to the kitchen to go grab a drink or something. And when I came back, I found her crying, and I'd never seen my grandmother cry in my whole entire lifetime. And I kid you, this woman is as tough as nails. She's one of the toughest, strongest women I know. And I froze. I didn't know how to react. I was just like, what is happening right now? I couldn't even hug her. Like, I froze in the moment. And I was like, what? Are you actually like crying? And then I snapped out of it and gave her a hug and tried to comfort her. And my granddad was like easing her, trying to make her feel better. But I suppose I get that. But now as I'm older, I have had experiences with certain people who raised me or who I've looked up to, where they confide certain things to me. And I'm like, oh my God, we are going through the same things or having the same... like they're grown. And I mean, I am grown, and I am deeping that we all go through these experiences. So that's my thought on this. By this person, when they commented that they realized that their parents don't have all the answers, it is really true. And a humbling feeling, I suppose. Someone else commented, oh, is this what we're going to do, Reddit? Get depressed? And someone said cartoons getting too weird to watch. I don't know about this one, because I still enjoy cartoons. I have a bunch of younger brothers. I don't think that's grammatically correct, but I have a bunch of younger brothers and they love cartoons and they're all different ages. So I am still enjoying my cartoons. Someone commented, losing your sense of wonder and amazement that you had as a child. Nearly everything was new and fun. You didn't have any bad memories, hopefully, and no regrets. You could do anything without fear of punishment, new foods, places, people, concepts, etc. After you reach adulthood, you've discovered 99% of the rest of your life, and you're expected to act a certain way in public. Very few things excite you as much as they did in your childhood. And 102 people upvoted this comment. Someone then responded, I like to think maybe we can find that excitement and magic of living again. I guess it's just hard to know where it's hiding sometimes. And 105 people upvoted this. Someone responded to this person saying, having small children has reignited that sense of wonder. Everything is so exciting and magical. It's hard not to be swept up in that. Holy shit, I found a huge caterpillar. Look, a motherfucking rainbow. And a few people have voted that too. And I think that's beautiful. I have a lot of younger brothers, and I have many younger cousins too, who I am close to. And when I'm with them, I allow myself to be a kid again. Like, one of my cousins is like, hey, come, let's play catch in the sitting room. And I go play with her. Or one of my youngest cousins, I would go with him and play with him and his toys and do all these silly, goofy things with all of them. And it's what makes me feel, it helps me with this whole growing up process. But these people have a point, for sure. Someone else commented, becoming jaded and cynical. Someone else said, for me, it was a sudden shift in perspective when I looked at the adults I once saw as strong and free to being scared, emotionally trapped individuals. This person actually summarized this perfectly, because I've touched on this like a bunch of times in this episode, but yeah. Someone else responded to this person saying, for me, it was realizing my parents were human. They were just imperfect people full of neuroses and fears just like me. That's when I quit becoming angry at them for what they didn't do and began to thank them for everything they did do. The humanity and weakness of our heroes and caretakers is what makes their sacrifices just that much more meaningful. My mother is now my best friend and the very same woman I used to hate with an absolute vengeance. Thanks, Mom and Dad. That's an interesting perspective. Someone said, that moment when you look at your parents and you don't see authority anymore, you just see people that are going through life one day at a time, the same as you. When you realize that they don't have all the answers, and you realize the things you hated them for when you were younger are completely understandable. And you want to do something to make up for all that shit, and you just can't. Exes get me more than absolutely anything. I grew up idealizing relationships, feeling that I wouldn't date until I was damn sure I was ready. My first relationship was in the 12th grade and lasted 2 years. After that, the girls hated and still hates me. The knowledge that there will be people, possibly many people in your life, who will first love you and then resent you with almost no chance of going back, really gets me. I don't want that with anyone, let alone girlfriends. Someone said best friends too. If you have a best friend, don't be that person's roommate. That's kind of unrelated, but very, very true. And then someone else said, my first girlfriend and I were together for 4 years, and it was an amicable but painful breakup. But losing that relationship taught me a lot. No one is fully responsible for another person's feelings, and if you are open and honest with a person from the start, they shouldn't despise you for anything. Be you, be honest, be happy, and love freely. I agree with this human being. Someone else said, I remember reading somewhere, when you're young, you have the energy and time to do things, but not the money. When you're middle-aged, you have the energy and the money, but not the time. When you're old, you have the time and the money, but not the energy. Moral, say fuck it once in a while and just follow your dreams and do whatever you want to do, because life is too short to wait all the time. Someone else said, for me, it's the news of the world. As I get older, it bothers me more and more. I had a mini breakdown last night hearing the news. I do resonate with things, but I think this is the comment I resonate with the most. I'm not gonna lie, from 2017 onwards, I used to watch the news a lot. Like, a day wouldn't go by when I haven't watched the news. I'd watch local news and mostly BBC News and Al Jazeera and just catch up on what's happening in the world. I found it fascinating because we live in a global community. However, I had to pause watching the news in 2020 because when the pandemic was happening and all the reportings of the death and how it's taking a toll on the world, I just had to take a mini break. And then there was a wave of feminism when the policeman in the UK raped and murdered a woman and was on the investigating team. That was fucked up. Also, all the hate Black people have got and Asian people have got, both online and on the news, insane to me. yeah, it's just ever evolving, and the drama and the chaos and it's just a lot. So I had to take breaks during different stages, and it's taken me a second to get back into it because I'm not currently watching the news. I'm like in my own bubble. But there were times I would watch the news and I would just have headaches and feel like my blood is boiling over, or just feel mentally drained. It just wasn't healthy, so I had to stop. Someone else commented, realizing you'll be more than one person in your life, people like to think that they never change and have these values and beliefs that hold up throughout their lives. The truth is, you'll become a totally different person over the course of your life multiple times, constantly being shaped and molded by your experiences, your dynamic being ever-changing and evolving, but not always for the better. Someone responded, I can very much relate to this. Someone said, realizing that you can't be carefree, realizing that you can't be young forever, and realizing that it's time to mature and be responsible. Realizing that your health is slowly going to deteriorate with the many years to come, that this is when all the stuff that you ate in the past, if not taken care of through medication and exercise, comes in the invitation of near or plain old heart attacks and possibly strokes. Realizing that you may not get to do what you love as a full-time job, and that you actually have to go through things you hate first before getting to where you want to be. If you live on your own, learning to manage your money wisely so that you can support yourself properly. If you live with another person and the other person is dependent on you, obtaining a decent job to support you both. And if you live with someone who has kids, if you live with someone and have kids, obtaining a very good job to support you and your children. And that means if both parents are working too, because children are very expensive. I like the thought of being independent and living on your own, but I read some of the things I've listed above, particularly the first two, hence why I ordered it from the first worry to the least worry. Okay, this was kind of depressing, but it is true and all part of growing up. Someone else commented, no one ever tells you you've been living the golden years. If you're listening to this podcast and you're in this deep, you cannot say that, because in last week's episode, I said these are the good old days, okay? In the advice #sesh1 episode, I said these are the good old days, and that literal statement made me create that whole episode. These are the good old days, my humans. If you're listening to this, value the now, and these are the good old days. Someone else commented, you have to accept the consequences of any decisions you make. I have felt this, especially as an adult. Someone else said, another contrasting view is someone commented, you know what, this is coming from a 35-year-old me. You don't change, do you? You have sex and you live on your own and you get married or you get divorced, but you're always you. You feel how you want to feel, and if you're lucky, you get smarter. I have a 5-year-old boy, and my sense of wonder lives on with him and through him. He and I watched Explorers 85, and I watched him enjoying a movie. You're always the same. If you choose to be, don't forget what the 256-year-old Chinese man said before he died. Bitches don't know. This has 47 upvotes. I don't have the energy right now to go check out the Chinese man, but if you can check it out and let me know in the DMs. DM me and tell me if you did the research for that. Okay, I'm gonna end it on an uplifting point. This person commented, I think it all depends on how you view things. Life is all about changing experiences. Nothing lasts forever. But just because something doesn't last forever doesn't mean it isn't replaced with something else. And it doesn't mean we cannot cherish our memories of those good times. The sad things about growing up, no more boundless summer breaks or as much free time in general, no more wandering over to your friend's house to see if they want to come out and play, losing touch with childhood friends, No more playing and getting tickled by your parents and watching your parents and grandparents getting old and eventually dying. No more weekends at your grandparents being spoiled rotten. But those things are replaced with other enriching activities. Seeing the time you invest into your life and career paying off, buying your first car, your first house, starting a family, and watching your children have those carefree summers and making best friends. Play fighting with them and watching them grow into real people with their own personalities. Staying in touch with a few good friends from university or even before, hanging out and appreciating each other more because each of you have such little time. Having big family gatherings at Christmas and other occasions, watching your kids play with your nieces and nephews, reminiscing with adults and retelling old stories and laughing, watching your children start their own families, watching your grandchildren grow up and spoiling them rotten, retiring with your spouse and enjoying those long summer days again. Yes, your body might not be able to move as fluidly as it did before, and you may need glasses to read, and are hard of hearing, but you've lived a long, full life, enriched with a lifetime of memories and experiences to pass on to the next generation, surrounded by loving family. Life is what you make of it, so make it a good one without regrets or pining on the past. And that concludes this episode. That is it. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I don't think it was as negative as I assumed or thought it would be. But again, resources are down below for more uplifting episodes. And I have a link down below that you can review the podcast on and rate it on both Apple and Spotify or wherever you're listening to this podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode, hearing my negative, vulnerable, daunting thoughts. But I hope you have a beautiful week and see you next week. Goodbye.